This conference will now be recorded.
And we'll start off from where we left last time. We have covered our security tab under Okta. So we'll start off from where we have left last time. If in case you guys have any doubts or queries, just come up with those. We can discuss that, and then we'll move on to the next topics we have in Okta. So I'll share my screen. Just let me know once it's visible to you. Okay.
Yeah, we are able to see your screen.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so anything guys under security tab which you want to discuss?
Yeah, like
Next.
I think token. Yeah, I think we created tokens long time back, right, sir? Like while creating users, right?
Right.
Token. Okay.
So
So
basically
we create.
tokens. Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
No, I was saying that, basically tokens would be created wherever you would be using Okta APIs, be it in app, be it for applications, be it for users, be it for groups, anywhere if you want to connect to Okta from a third-party applications, tokens needs to be created.
So third-party applications means like
Postman.
we used a single sign-on at the time we use a token or.
No, no, no. For single sign-on, that's like a single sign-on concept only. But when I say third party, it could be either your Postman or it could be a JavaScript code wherever you are trying to get into your Okta domain from somewhere outside of Okta. Like single sign-on is like trying to get into, I mean, you're trying to get into another application which is integrated with Okta, so that doesn't require a token.
Okay. Okay, I will look for old videos and I will see. I'll figure it out. Like this token
Oh,
were used or to
okay.
create that.
Anything else from anyone before we move on to the workflows topic?
I think we are good, sir. Like
Okay,
all other things, I'm good, but only the token only. I just took them now.
okay, okay, no problem. Okay, then we'll start off with the workflow topic. So, guys, workflow topic, first of all, I'll just let you know that over here in Okta, we are using this free trial version, and even if we are not using a free trial version, no workflows are not free of cost. Like even if it is a paid licensed software or product of Okta, then also workflows are not free of cost. Like you have to pay Okta a separate amount to enable their workflow console on your environment. Like you remember, I did show you guys the directory integration environment. So over there as well, we do not have like if in case you have a purchase license, so you are allowed to create 5 workflows at maximum. But if in case like you want to do a lot of automation using workflows in Okta, then you'll have to go ahead and purchase a license for Okta workflows. So that's like their different product. But what I want to just discuss is the theoretical stuff over here in the workflow, because 90% of the people haven't worked with the workflows in Okta. The reason being because Okta workflows are first not free of cost, and secondly, currently, like last month itself they have actually introduced this concept of workflow. Although it was there before, you would be able to see this workflow console from last 2 years. But the thing is, like they have upgraded their workflow console product in last month only. So last month I had a discussion with the Okta team directly, who is responsible for this, product team, who is responsible for this workflow, and that's why they did tell me that they have recently upgraded their Okta workflows. So I'll just have something on the Okta workflows. We'll just go through it. So basically under Okta workflows, you will see three different tabs. And if in case you have a paid license, you are going to see four different tabs. One would be your automation, inline hooks, event hooks, and then would be your workflow console. Over here, we are not able to see the workflow console because it's not a free, I mean paid version. Okay, so basically, like if we talk about workflows, right? So Okta provides the features that enables you to automate and customize your Okta process. Okay, so basically, whenever we are talking about workflows, it's you need to think that we are talking about automation, and be it not in only Okta, it's a general stuff in development domain that whenever you are creating a workflow for something, that means that is doing something like an automation, because you have created what is a workflow. A workflow is like steps, you're defining the sequential steps that the process, I mean this should occur automatically, right? So once all of that is occurring in a from top to down format, like that means that something is automated. The reason because those steps are being once being processed, they are being carried on their own. You don't have to do, you have to trigger a workflow, and once the workflow is triggered, whatever steps are written, that will be implemented on its own, right? So you if you remember, like you must have created a workflow on paper, right? We try to create a workflow like, okay, start and then do something, if conditions, then this, then that, and then finally end it. So that's like a workflow on paper. And then if we want to do something on our environment, then we can again we have to follow that same approach, that we'll have something like a start thing which will trigger the workflow, then we'll have some steps or the process which will be implemented while the workflow is running, and then that workflow would be completed. Okay, so whatever Okta process we have, like creation of a user, deletion of a user, application addition, groups creation, rules creation, whatever we have, we can create different automations in Okta, or the workflows in Okta. So with automations, we can prepare for and respond to situations that occur during the life cycles of the end user. So like what is the life cycle of the end user is that a user is created, then a user is modified, then a user is updated, and then finally the user is deleted or deactivated. So whatever process or whatever events occurs in the life cycle of an end user, all of that we can create workflows on all those scenarios. So basically, and so during the life cycles of end users who are assigned to the Okta groups, event hook enables you to trigger the process. So that's like the workflow. We have three different stuff over here. One is automations, one is inline hooks, and the other is event hooks. So what we discussed right now is about the automations. So over here, if you just want to add a simple automation, it won't allow you to do anything right now. But like if you just want to see it, so if I just go on and click it, you'll see that there is a condition which will trigger the flow, and then it is saying that perform the following actions. So these would be the set of steps which would be implemented if the workflow is running. Okay. So over here, if I just want to add a condition, like maybe I can say that if a user is inactive in Okta for maybe 90 days, then do something. So I can either schedule it, or I can just, maybe I can apply it for everyone. And yeah, and then I say that just maybe change the life cycle state of a user to deactivate it. So what I'm trying to say over here is, like, if a user is not working, or if a user is inactive in Okta for straight 90 days, then just deactivate the users. I mean, just change the state of the user to deactivate it, and then you enable this. Okay. So now what will happen is that if there is an individual who is not active in Okta for straight 90 days, then automatically this, user would be deactivated. Okay, so how is this happening is because of this workflow automation. So you don't have to, go and check like who has logged in last time. Automatically every day at this point of time, this workflow will run. That is 6:57 a.m. IST. Every day we can change it for sure, but like every day this workflow will run at this time, and it will be applicable for all the people whosoever are assigned to this group. Okta will check all the people under this group, and it will say, okay, any user who is inactive for more than 90 days, Okta will just disable. So if all these conditions gets true, or Okta will perform this set of action. So that's how it is. Okay, so that's what automations are. It's a very simple automation, and this is the maximum we can create because it's a free version. So we, if in case I just deactivate it, and I just try to show you maybe one more automation. So over here, you again, maybe before test. So over here you'll see that I don't get an option for many conditions. Like, the condition type is only if a user is inactive or a user password expiration is coming for Okta. So if a password is going to expire in 5 days, and you can just schedule this workflow as well. I'll just schedule it. I'll just give it to everyone again. And then if I want to add an action, so maybe I just want that user to be in the suspended state if the password is expired, and then just activate this. So now again, this says that if a user is if someone's password is expiring within 5 days in for this particular group, then every day the workflow will be triggered at this time, and it will just change the state of that user to suspended state. So that's how it is. Like, I'll just deactivate it, but that's what, the couple of automations which we can see in our environment for the time being. So then this is something like, the automations, a very simple concept of automations over here, although you would be able to see that it's not giving us a variety of automation. Like, it's very restrictive. Like, you can only have this set of conditions, and the if you want to add an action, you don't have much to add as an action. You can only, change the state of a user. So that's like a very limited stuff we can do. But still, a lot of useful stuff we can do, because like, the first one which we create many a times, this one, the test one, this one is actually created a lot of times because, we just want to see that people sometimes leave the organization, and there is nothing to remove their access. So in this way, like, we can see, okay, if a user is not active in Okta for some time, just deactivate it. So that way, like, if you're having 1 lakh organization users, so you don't have to go and check it. Okta itself will do it, and it will keep on deactivating for the people who are not active for like 90 days. There could be scenarios, if someone has gone on a maternity leave, so they won't be available for 180 days or stuff like that. So in those scenarios, we need to actually create Okta rules in order to, keep them in the exception group, so that they are not deactivated from Okta. And over here, we won't give everyone group. In fact, we'll give some other group, or we'll exclude that particular group for which, the people who are in maternity leave, or some emergency personal leave, they are not being, deactivated. So there could be different scenarios in which, we can create this automation for. But that's like, one of the examples what we can do in Okta automations. Any doubts you have before we check the inline hooks?
So this automation will be applicable for all the users, right, sir? If you don't give any rules.
No, yeah, I mean it will be applicable for all the group users for whatever you specify here. If I go in and specify only the admin group or some other
Oh,
group, it will just take that particular people into account.
okay, you mentioned that maternity, right? So we go to groups and yeah, we have the rule, right? Group rules. We'll go there and add it. That one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Rules, right? We have the rules in the top, right? So, okay. So where is the option like we can have like something in the rule? Let me.
Over here, there would be an actually we will actually have to use an Okta expression language for us to create that rule. Over here, there is an extension named as I'll just add that extension here, Rockstar. You guys can also, start using this extension for Okta. Their name is Rockstar. You just need to go into this Rockstar and just add it to your web. This is a very helpful, stuff. Okay, now, I'll be able to see this. Yeah. So once you add this extension, something like this will start coming up over here. Okay. So over here, if I go to people and export users. So yeah, over here I have the last login date. Okay, and so I will just have to use something like this that the user dot last login date is not more than 90 days. Then just put them to this particular group. Okay, and uh, it would be something like if you just have the user dot last login date. Oh, no. Then assign to maybe a maternity group. We can just check whether these people we'll have to create a group first, and then we'll have to just assign this to this group. So whatever user will be created, we can have a check at that point of time that whether it's uh, activity is more than 90 days or not, and if in case no, then we can just have it. So there would be a group created. I mean, this is not necessary that this is the approach we'll have to use, but the thing is what I'm trying to say is that we'll have to create something in Okta in which those people are added, and then we'll just don't use that group here in that automation tab, so that we don't apply the same logic on that particular group, because those people are already excluded. So definitely they are not going to have activity for straight 90 days. So they can have they can be excluded from the group. But the stuff is like we'll have something on the not something, it will be an Okta group or any other, maybe an AD group or an LDAP group, which will help us to understand that these are the set of people which are excluded. So for them we have to take an exception, but for the others we need to check if someone is not using for straight 90 days, they are deactivated.
So you added a Rockstar extension, sir, right?
Yeah.
Right. So what is the purpose of this Rockstar? Like it will give some coding kind of thing, or
No, actually,
so
the purpose
Rockstar.
of this extension is like if you, in case you want to use any Okta APIs, no, you don't have to go to Postman. You can directly use it. Like if in case you want to see how many number of groups you have in Okta, so you can directly export groups. It will send you 9 groups are exported done in an CSV file. If you want to see like
Oh,
how many group rules we have, so you can directly use it on any tab you go. If you go to applications, you can export your apps. If you go to security, if you go to authentication, you can see what all things you can do, maybe APIs. Then you can see again, like if in case you go to any tab, like especially it's very useful if you are on the directory tab. So like it helps you to export users, and also not just export users, you can export users like what all attributes you want for that user. Like currently it is selected that it will if I don't select anything, it will send user ID, status, last login. But I want to select something, I can just go in and select directly, and it will send me those particular attributes as well. So while actually working on the Okta reports, this tool becomes very helpful because currently we have a very small amount of data in our environment, but it is like if you have around 1 lakh users and stuff, then this becomes very easy. If you want to, out of 1 lakh, you want to just filter some users, and then you can just have a filter query over here, like filter this equal to, maybe you want to just find out who are all the deprovisioned users, or you want to find out who are all the maybe logged out users. So over here, if you just export, oh sorry, log, maybe log, maybe this is not right. Maybe this only I'll use. Yeah, so now this would have actually sent me the list of data who are deprovisioned. I mean, who are removed from the organization. Currently, we do not have any user who is actually deprovisioned, so that's why it is not giving. If in case I want to find out who are the active users, I can just go and export it. It will just send me the data that these are, the active users in Okta we have right now. So we can, it's very useful in all those scenarios where we want to understand, like, in which we want to understand the reports of the users. So that's where it helps you. So like currently we have, see, everyone is 18 and staged is 2. So if you want to find out who are those two staged users, so you can just, you can just export it, and it will send you to. So it's very easy for us. We will think that why do we have to do this, like we can go in here. But suppose this 2 becomes 220,000, then seeing from here wouldn't make sense. Then you would require something in the format of a CSV, so that you can play around with that data, or you can do whatever you want to do. So that's where all of this can be done from this Rockstar extension. So it's a very useful extension and a very useful, most of the people don't use this although, but from my personal experience, like you'll find this very useful. Most of the people don't even know about this Rockstar extension. They still use, Postman to do it. Over here, you don't have to use an API token or anything like that, because it's an extension, so it's directly integrated with Okta. So if you are using your browser, you have a session already created on your browser, and this is a browser extension. So why do we require an API token? We require an API token to create a session with the Okta environment. And since we already have a session we're here with, so it doesn't require that, it automatically senses that, okay, which environment you are in, and accordingly it will start, sending you or help you with all the data. So that's what. Okay, coming back to the topic, like automations. So next is like the inline hooks. Now, if we talk about this extension and automations is clear to you guys, right?
yeah, the Rockstar, I got it. I'm able to export it.
Okay,
To
everyone,
play.
to start this, it will be very helpful for Okta. Okay. So moving on to the event hooks. Event hooks is something which enables you to trigger the flows within your Okta software system, And inline hooks is like, to make the outbound calls with your custom code. So see, events hook is something like automations is something to, do with the end user life cycle. Event hook is something, if there is something happening in your system, then you can just trigger the process at that point of time. Like, what is an event? An event could be anything, like, a user getting created, a user being deleted, maybe an application getting onboarded, maybe a group being created, maybe a group being deleted, maybe users being onboarded to a certain group. All of these are events in Okta, right? Because there is something happening. So there could be some trigger process flows which would be inside our Okta environment. So they are event hooks. And inline hooks are if you want to, integrate your code with the Okta workflows, then they are inline hooks. Like, there is an Okta workflow and it is going to use a REST API outside of Okta. Maybe it is going to make an API call to some other environment that is not Okta, that is some other identity access management tool, or maybe your Java or any other stuff. So at that point of time, if you want to integrate your workflows with that custom code, you use inline hooks. So that's a different. Event hooks is like event hook is like your inside of Okta, same thing. And inline hooks is like your outside of Okta, like, to make the outbound calls, that time you use inline hooks. And event hook is like your inbound calls. So whatever is happening inside Okta, that is your inbound calls, and that's why that is your event hooks. And if something is happening with Okta and with third party application or outside of Okta, that is your inline hooks, that is your outbound calls. So that's what the difference is between these two. So basically, these automations enables us to quickly prepare and respond to situations that occur during the life cycle of end users who are assigned to an Okta group. So basic, as we have discussed before, right? Like, so we don't have to worry about all these situations on our own. Okta will manage it, and this helps us improve the efficiency and satisfaction among employees, partners, and contingent workforce. For example, an automation can help for inactivity lockouts, the thing which we just saw. If a user has been inactive for certain number of days and is on the verge of being logged out, we can use an automation to alert an inactive user in advance. So we can just, alert that user in advance, like whosoever is getting logged out. So if we want to set an automation by defining the following terms, the conditions, we require a condition. So we just saw that right over here, we required a condition to be there, and then we require the actions. So first thing is condition, the criteria that triggers the Okta to perform actions on a group of end users. So we just saw that, we have a group of end users over here, and, we are trying to perform an action over on them, and we are trying to set a condition for these people. So we have couple of conditions, either a user inactivity in Okta or the user password expiration in Okta. These conditions are triggered according to a schedule and can be applied to one or more groups, and conditions are mandatory for automations on recurring schedules. So we just saw that, we have to apply these conditions, we have to schedule it, we have to apply it on a group, and then either we can do it like, a user inactivity or a password lockout stuff. Um, just if I delete and just show it to you again. So it's like I want to add a condition. So I've got a couple of things, either a user inactivity in Okta or a user password expiration in Okta. So that's what these two mean. And actions is like once we have, set the conditions, then we want to perform certain actions. So those actions that we want in Okta to perform when the scheduled conditions are true, and either we can send an email to the user or change the user lifecycle state in Okta. So over here right now, you just, see that maybe if I give 3 for the example, over here you won't be able to see like, delete this as well, and then I want to add an action. So there over here actually you should have couple of options, either to send an email or to change the user lifecycle state. But the thing is, like, since this is the free trial version, so it does not allow you to send emails here in Okta. But if in case we are talking about a paid version not for Okta workflows but for, general stuff, so then, it allows you to send an email as well to the user. So, this will automations can do in only this thing, like if a user is inactivated, or if a user is going to be logged out or password is going to expire, we can either send that user an email or change the lifecycle state of that user in Okta. So like if you're talking about large number of people, then these would automation in Okta in the workflow section would really be helpful for us. Next, talking about is the inline hooks. So as I did mention before, that inline hooks are the outbound calls from Okta to your custom code. So let's assume you have already written a custom code, and you want to make an outbound call, that is an call from Okta to that particular code. So let's assume that you have got couple of applications, that your application, you have written a custom code to develop an application, and you have Okta. So now you want Okta to communicate to your application, that is like your outbound call. Okay. So there could be that you want that these outbound calls from Okta to your custom code go when they should be triggered at specific points in Okta process. Like there are certain Okta processes which are happening in Okta, like your event creation or user creation, group creation. So you want these calls to be triggered at that point of time, and so they allow you to integrate custom functionalities in those flows. You implement your custom code as a web service with an internet accessible endpoint. See, this is something like completely related to development. I'm not sure if you will understand this or not, but this is not exactly related to your Okta environment. The thing is, like, inline hooks is something if you want to bring in customization in your Okta. Okay, so if you want to make outbound calls, or if you want to work with APIs, I mean, if you are developing REST APIs at that point of time, this will become very helpful. If in case we are not sure that how do we develop REST APIs and stuff like that, then inline hooks, you don't have to worry about inline hooks, because and most of the times you will see that this is not going to be used, because this is again not covered under free version. I mean, this is there, like if you'll see over here, there you can see that you can add an inline hook, but you have got in the restricted inline hooks. You have got a lot of inline hooks when we talk about in the paid version. So currently you just can add an inline hook for registration, or registration is like your user registration. Whenever the user is getting onboarded in Okta, you can do it for SAML or a token or a password input. So over here, basically it is going to be a custom code, and you are going to make calls with your custom code for certain processes on Okta. Okay, so Okta defines the REST API contract for your request. It sends to your custom code, and as well as for the responses your custom code can send back. So basically, you can write down all the process, like your Okta is going to communicate with your custom code, and your custom code is going to communicate with your Okta. So whatever is the response, whatever is the request, you can all write it down in the form of a workflow. So and upon based upon those conditions, and request and response, whatever you are getting, you can write conditions that if we are receiving this kind of a response, then these set of action should be performed, or this should be implemented. So something like this only. But over here you have everything, like you don't have to do anything over here. You just have to add conditions. Over there you will have to write your own custom code, talk to that custom code, then check, okay, if this is the condition, then this should happen and stuff like that. So that's what happens in Linux. It's outside of Okta. Outside in the mean, like it's bringing your own custom code into existence. So that's why. So the outbound call from Okta is called a hook. Your code which receives the call is referred to as the external service. So if you're talking about inline hooks, it has external service. They use synchronous calls. Now synchronous calls is like whenever the call will be made, Okta, which means that the Okta process, the trigger hook is paused until until a response from the service is received. So that means, like if in case there is a call made from Okta to the third party or to the external service, and until that process is, or that response is not received from the third party, the workflow will be on hold. The workflow will not complete the steps. The workflow will be in the running state only. So let's assume that I'm not talking about Okta right now. I'm just giving you a general example for you to understand this concept. Let's assume that you are working in an organization and you wanted to apply for a leave. You went to the portal, you applied for the leave. According to that workflow concept, if we think it in the workflow concept, let's suppose the moment you applied for a leave, a workflow would be triggered, which will be sending your email to your manager. Now your manager, the workflow is saying that the request is pending on your manager either to approve or reject. If the manager approves it, then your leave is approved in your in your portal. If the manager rejects it, the same is updated on your portal. And if the manager is not taking the step, like manager is not free, right? He or she is actually working on something, so they might not have seen that that request which is triggered from you for maybe 2 3 days. So what will happen? That workflow will not complete. It will not update anything. The thing is, until unless some action is not taken by the manager, it will not update. So this is called synchronous call because they both are working synchronous in a synchronized manner. Like if something is happening on your on the leave portal only when manager is doing something. If manager is not doing something, the workflow is in the hold state. It's running, but it's not actually running. It has not completed yet. So if manager takes this action 2 days, 4 days, 7 days, the workflow will be in the hold state. It will not be completed. So that's like your synchronous call. So same will happen in Okta. It will make an Okta, I mean, your Okta becomes your leave portal and your manager becomes your custom code over here. So if in case your Okta is trying to communicate with your manager, that is your custom code. So until unless your custom code doesn't take any action, yeah, like something will not be completed here on the Okta side. So that's like your synchronous call. So that's pretty much it about your inline hooks. Like basically, I have nothing to show over here because if I want to add something, you can see that I need to add all these stuff, and I do not have because I haven't created my custom code, so I do not have all of this stuff right now. So, but if in case if someone is doing it, so here is the option to go ahead and add an inline hook. So yeah, that's pretty much it. But the main concept of talking about this inline hooks is nobody is going to ask you in your interviews or anywhere that what do you mean by, I mean, what have you actually worked with inline hooks or not. But the thing is, like when we are learning a product of Okta, so if we learn it end to end, then it would be good. At least you should have some theoretical knowledge about this topic, because if in case someone asks, you can say that we haven't got a chance to actually work with this inline hooks concept, but we know what it is. So that way it just tells the other person that you are interested in knowing everything about this product, so you must be knowing this product well. So that's the main reason I have just touched based of this topic. Otherwise, same thing with events. So there's nothing much to discuss over here as well, but you should know theoretically what this topic means. So, anything you want to discuss before I move to event hook?
So where exactly we use the inline hooks, sir? Like inline hooks, like so with third-party applications. That's what you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Like REST APIs and
See, it's not a third-party application. It's like some process in Okta you wanted to trigger a workflow. Okay, you wanted to create a workflow. Now over here, if you go to automation, right? Okta is not giving you many options like perform the actions. It will just give you two options, either send an email or do this. Now you don't want this, the basic stuff which is given by Okta. You wanted that, you wanted to do something out of the box. So at that point of the time, you have to use inline hooks in such a way that you can write your own custom code, what it has to do, and then you can bring those custom code into picture by using inline hooks. So basically, if you look at automations, no, or event hooks, they are pretty much the same. Like, but it says whatever is happening inside Okta. But right now we want like something is happening inside Okta, but Okta is not giving me that capability to perform the action. So what I wanted. So maybe I'll write my own code and I will call that code only when I want to. I mean, I will call that code from this inline hooks. So it will, whatever behavior as I have in Okta, I can just connect to that external service, and that external service can help me to achieve this. So scenarios could be like, if in like that leave management stuff, no, I told, so if in case like, that's like a example, not related to Okta, but something like that, you maybe, if you have a user in Okta, and that's going to be, maybe the role is changing for that user, that user is becoming, currently that user was, application admin, and now the user is becoming a super, I mean, the user is becoming maybe an org admin. So you want that, whenever this change is happening, you wanted, an approval flow, like, you wanted an approval of, the super admin in Okta. So now there is no way you can do it over here with the whatever event hooks or automations you have. So at that point of time, you'll have to write your own Java code in order to, have this thing. So like, as I've mentioned, like, because there is an elevation of permission which is happening, from group admin to org admin, he is getting more access to the environment. So super admin should approve it. So, again, that becomes like, until unless super admins don't approve it, your Okta workflow will be on hold, and once they approve it, you will be able to, uh, you'll be able to get that access. So that point of time, your workflow will be completed. So that's what inline hooks helps you to do. You'll have to write your third party code, and when you're writing the third party code, you have to communicate to the third party code, and that can be done through inline hooks.
Okay, got it, sir. Just high level. So, okay, thank
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, for inline hooks, event hooks, it's only, the purpose is to, help you understand from an high level. I understand, because, until unless you guys don't do it practically, this wouldn't make sense, right? But the thing is, like, we cannot write a code over here. I mean, we can definitely write a code, but the thing is, like, we don't want to get into all of that thing right now. The reason being because these are the topics which you won't be able to use until unless you don't have a paid version. So like, there is nothing much, and also 90-95% of the organizations don't use this inline or event hooks. It's a very strong, a strong, product of Okta, but the thing is, like, uh, people don't want to code at this point of time. They like, from the coding environment, people are coming to a no code or less coding environment now. So that's why Okta is also upgrading, and in the new features of Okta, they are coming up with all these stuff. You don't have to write a code. They will help you to connect with the third party, services, and you just, can make the direct calls. You'll have something like this only in the automations format, something like this, whatever you see here, something like this, and they will help you to connect with the third party application. So that's where they have introduced that workflow console concept. So whatever are the free paid versions, they allow you to, create or make outbound calls without using inline hooks. So we don't have to worry about it. But like, for the time being, this till the time this is not deprecated from Okta, you should know, like, what inline hooks are. So yep, moving on to the, the event hooks. So they are like your outbound calls from Okta that triggers the process within your own software system. So this is like, exactly opposite of, inline hooks. They are basically, just within the Okta system only. They are not communicating to any third party. They are communicating to whatever process we have inside Okta. That's what. So they are being, triggered when a specific event occurs in your organization, and they deliver the information about that event. So event, as I mentioned before, could be anything: user creation, user deletion. And unlike inline hooks, event hooks are asynchronous. So in asynchronous means, like, it will not hold or wait for, the action to complete. It will keep on working, like, until unless, like, from step 1 to step 2, it will go, even if, there is a dependency on the system, it will not wait. But in the synchronous calls, whenever there is a dependency, the workflow will be on hold until unless that dependency is not completed. So that's the difference between a synchronous and an asynchronous call. So Yeah, and they are asynchronous and do not offer a way to execute the Okta process flow. After sending the call, Okta process flow continues without waiting for a response from the call service. So, it doesn't wait for a response from the call service, whereas in the inline hooks they are synchronous, so they wait for a call or a response from the called service. To set up an event hook, you need to implement a web service within an internet accessible endpoint. It's your responsibility to arrange hosting of your code on a system external to Okta. Okta defines the REST API contract for the request it sends to your custom code, as well as for the responses your custom code can send back. So again, basically if you want to add an inline or an event hook, we just go to our console over here. Again, same thing, inline hook or event hook. Both way you require some environment to be set up, like what are your URLs or authentication field and the secret. And once you have this, then you are able to, this is something you have written a custom code and then you want to interact with. The only difference between these two parties are one is synchronous and the other is asynchronous, and both actually work on, like the processes which we have in Okta. So, like what processes could be your events, or anything like your user deletion or a user creation or stuff like that. So yeah. So for example, if you want to add an inline or an event hook, we just need to give a name. We need to give the service external service endpoint URL, to which the hook is, like the request which will be sent. Then we require an authentication field which will actually help us to set up this. I mean, which will validate whether a legitimate user is actually going into this third party. I mean, the web service which is being hosted by us or not. And then the secret value, and then the custom header fields. Custom header fields is something like, you remember when we do SAML or OIDC integrations, we send attributes, right? So that's what, like, if in case we want to send some custom header fields, we can send it. And then we can just specifically subscribe to the events. So the specific event types that we want to use the event hook to deliver. Okay. So once we click on save and make it active, we can just verify our endpoint. And we actually have to verify our endpoint. Our endpoint is that the web service which we have posted on our environment. So once that is done, we'll be able to actually uh, create or make calls from Okta to that third party or the external services. And then accordingly, we can uh, just create different scenarios in Okta in order to automate certain stuff. So that's what workflows are all about in Okta. We have automations, we have inline hooks, we have event hooks, and we have just theoretically discussed. Practical we can only see for automations which we have seen, but theoretically inline hooks and event hooks are, like the only difference which you can think of is, like one is inline hook, one is synchronous, which is inline hooks, because it waits for the call from the it just waits for the response from the call service. And event hooks, they don't wait for any response from the call service. So yeah.
So for event hooks, it won't non-synchronize, right, sir? Like in-synchronize. So not synchronized. So once you send a request, like you won't get a response for in a minute or in 10 seconds. So it will continuously, it will go to
Yeah,
next process,
yeah, right.
will run it. So then it is a failure, right, sir? So you are not getting response. So you are not doing the job. So
See, actually, no,
for
no, no, no. For example, event hooks, you will use an event hook in such a way where you do not expect a response. You just wanted to call something in order to do that stuff on that third party application, and then you want to come back and implement the same on your end. So you don't want I mean, see, currently, see, for example, let's assume that you wanted that whenever a user is created in Okta, you wanted that user to be created in your Excel file also. Okay, you use an event hook. Okay, now a user is created, that is an Okta event. you just you are calling your third party application, that is your Excel. You have written a code in such a way that gives the path file and everything. It will just execute that in a step that it will just create a user on your Excel file also, and then you complete your process. Over here you are not expecting any response because you created a user in Okta. You also created a user in Excel, or let's say a database via Excel. Like Excel is very basic, we can do it from anywhere, but let's say we have a database also, so you just created that user in that particular database also, and Oracle database or anything, SQL server, and then you just continued with whatever stuff you had, like maybe you wanted to activate that user also through an automation or an event, or you did that and stuff like that. So that's like it did not have any dependency, right? It did not have any dependency to create a user. Like we don't require to wait over here, because you created a user in Okta. That user itself got created on the SQL, and then it got implemented. But if in case we are talking about something like an approval, or somewhere we are requesting a response, so at that point of time we'll wait. So we'll design these flows in such a way that whenever we are whenever we are expecting any response or anything like that, we'll use inline hooks. Whenever we are not expecting any response, we'll use event hooks.
Okay. Okay, sir. Got it.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else from anyone?
Yeah, I think we'll review and come back, sir.
Right.
With these PowerPoints.
Okay.
This is the most critical.
Apart from that, guys, reporting stuff is remaining. It will not take much time, because reporting is like maybe 30-minute session on reporting, and then we'll just cover the settings and the customization stuffs in the next. So I am hoping, like we'll have this completed by I mean whenever we'll have the next class, this should be completed, and then you guys can decide it among yourselves that if you want an extra session to discuss something on overall Okta, and anything specifically on any topic, or any doubts, or anything with regards to interview preparations, anything you want to have a discussion with, we can have one more session, and then we'll be completing this Okta syllabus.
So, do you have any set of interview questions kind of thing? Maybe you are doing some interviews or something like that.
We do not, I mean, I do not have a documented setup, but like the thing is, like I can help you, like like with regards to all the topics, whatever we have in Okta, we can have a session wherein I can just help you understand, or maybe ask you some, I mean, let you know some of the interview questions which are generally asked.
Okay, sir. Maybe we can next session, maybe Monday, we have a session. Then give me a couple of days, like 2-3 days, and maybe
Yeah, yeah,
Friday we can have some kind of a review session. And
yeah, sure, that's fine.
okay.
That's fine. Okay, I think that
Thank you,
sounds
sir.
good. Yeah. So I think we are good for the day, then we can close it off. And yeah, anything else you have any doubts, you can just review it today, and we can discuss in our next session. Okay, guys, then thank you for your time. Have a good one.
Yeah, good one. Thank you.
Thank you.